Hi. Today I recorded a podcast with Hastur, Lord Willow, and Mouse, and they are 3 other content creators of the Neverwinter universe. And here it is. We addressed the CDP's proposal about the roadmap of things that are going to be occurring in the future. If you don't know what the CDP is, I don't really know what it stands for, but it's basically a community development program. That's probably what it stands for. Where the community suggests things, we talk about specific topics every month, I think it's going to be, and then at the end of it, Chris Whiteside is going to take all of our ideas, make them into a proposal. Some stuff has already been talked about with the team, and it's basically like a way for the community to get involved directly with the development of the game. And there's also going to be a lot more transparency about things that are happening in the future, which I think is great. So overall, I am pretty enthusiastic for this new initiative that they're doing, and that's why we had this podcast to talk about it. It's called the P3 podcast, but I asked what the P stood for, and he said it could stand for whatever I wanted, so I decided it was going to be pasta. So the pasta podcast, the pasta cast. Right. I didn't speak a whole lot in this podcast, but there were a lot of great things said, so I hope you all enjoy, and feel free to leave your own thoughts, comments, and opinions in the comments as well. All right. Enjoy.
Yeah, you do. So, I mean, that's how I'm going to introduce you. Yeah. I'm going to say, so this is like Silvery, or Rachel, and she's a YouTuber. That's what I'm going to say. She's a YouTuber, and she is probably the most aloof YouTuber I know because she doesn't care what anyone else thinks about her or her videos. So if you watch it on her channel,
you're instantly 10 times cooler than if you watch it on anyone else's channel.
There you have it, boys and girls.
Welcome all to the first, and if we hope of many, which will be many, P3 podcasts. In the podcast, we hope to cover all that is relevant in Neverwinter in the past and future 30 days. Today, we've assembled many of the current and new content creators of Neverwinter Online to ask and answer some questions that are on top of their minds. In so doing, we hope that you will find an alternative way to keep up to date on all that is trending in the game. The goal of the podcast is to produce one every 30 days that will roughly have between 4 and 6 content creators joining us to bring you about 60 minutes of electrifying debate on what was and will be in Neverwinter going forward. The first topic for this week, we focused on the proposal, a written document that was posted today. On Craptic from our new executive producer, Chris Whiteside. And we're going to give some feedback on that and both the CDP and the CDP summaries from the players over the past, 30 days? So who we have with us today? We have 3, one YouTuber, which she refers, like she doesn't want to be called that. So we're going to call her that. She's a YouTuber. We have Rachel Silvery, whose mouth is going to be full for most of this, those podcasts, she says. It's not by her. So anyways, she has little... What am I saying here?
What are you saying?
What am I saying? Like, it's like I'm looking at, I'm going to go on a flow and then I'm totally off topic. It's right. It's okay. This Silver is going to edit this out, right? This will be edited out for sure.
Yeah.
We hope so.
So Rachel Silvery is a preeminent YouTuber, not by her choice, as she has little to do with it. She literally just makes builds, dies repeatedly to entertain her audience, thus proving her own builds. So that's the first person we'll have a guest. And then we also have with us Lord Willow, a Twitch streamer.
Do I get to say hi?
No, you don't. There's no highs in this. There'll be no talking.
Gotcha.
Not allowed.
I thought your mouth was going to be full of food for the whole thing.
I never said that.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Just part of it.
All right. So say hi now.
Hi.
All right. There we go. Thanks to you. We have Lord Willow, a Twitch streamer and resident spreadsheet aficionado. He's told me privately that he has joined XLA, that's Spreadsheets Anonymous, to try and curb his habit. The coming months will be important for his recovery, so I will support him in that. Hello?
Yo, What's up?
Right.
Oh,
And
dear.
we last but not least, well, it actually is really least because really it's only a one-line introduction. It's Misfit Mouse, noted cheese expert and spelling demon.
Hi.
Accurate.
All right.
True story.
So let's start off with we just went through this whole big schlamoggle for like a month. We thought it was going to be like 2 weeks, ended up being like closer to 4 or 5, and we're just getting to the end of it now. The CDP, right? The first one about accessibility. And so one of the questions I wanted to ask each of you was, I mean, we did some prep, but I don't know how much prep you guys do because I do none. But the first question is, out of all of the CDP stuff, what 2 things, what was the number one thing that you saw? What was the number one thing that you thought that was, wow, that's nailed me. That's I want. Rachel?
Why do I gotta go first?
No, you
Your
don't.
mouth
I can
moves
say I can
forward.
have somebody else to go first because you still have your food in your mouth. Is that what you're saying?
Well, because that's not the first question on the document. It doesn't say
It's not.
to pick. It's asked. The first question is what my first impressions are, not what my number one thing is.
All right. So then, okay. Well, you're just gonna make this difficult. Okay.
I'm not trying to make it difficult.
This is not getting deleted from the podcast. I'm just telling you, this is not getting deleted.
I wasn't being
all
Speaking
right.
the
deleted.
truth. Speaking the truth. Come on.
All right. So then, what was your first impressions, Rachel?
I think it's a big undertaking that they're gonna do, and I will be surprised if they manage to hit everything to the fullest potential throughout the entire year. It's just a lot, and knowing what we know about their limited resources and how little time they actually have to do things in each development cycle, it has me a little bit concerned, but I'm also hopeful because I like everything that's being said. I like the different ideas that are listed, and I think that it touches on a lot of the different points that people are really concerned about. So I am cautiously hopeful. That's my first impression.
Of what? Like, because I mean, overall of the CDP as a
proposal.
whole, just the proposal. Okay,
That's what we're talking about, right?
No. The proposal is kind of like the middle ground, right? Like we want to go past to
It
present
says
to future, but that's okay. I mean, that's fine. She just didn't. She didn't come prepared. Is basically what she's saying. She only read like the page from today. That's what happened.
there's only one page.
Oh no, there's 14 pages.
Oh, Christ. You want us to go over all of that?
No, I don't want you to go all. I wanted 2 things from that. I wanted 2 things, but that's okay. What about? So let's go to Willow because I know Willow knew what I was talking about. So what?
So
what?
I'm actually slightly in agreement with Rachel here, and yes, I have a couple of topics that I posted on the CDP. All of my topics made the list, in the proposal today. And let's clarify, it wasn't really a proposal. This is kind of a roadmap that was put together. My first impressions of the roadmap, and the CDP process, I am cautiously optimistic. I'm actually probably more optimistic than some people on this. I've experienced in the past new managers coming in. I've witnessed it from the outside, seeing new managers coming into development teams and completely turning the ship around without having to, uh, change resources. And I know you hate referring to people as resources, Hastur, so I'm going to say resources again.
Well,
Right.
I was thinking about you. It's an awful lot of flexing in the early part of your statement. Anyways, it's like
Yeah.
I put my 2 cents in, and my 2 cents made it to the top. Is what you're saying?
Well,
basically.
the thing is that there were a lot of other people that agreed with that. I will say this. I mean, from my impressions on the roadmap, I'm going to refuse to call it a proposal because it really wasn't a proposal today. Kind of that roadmap going forward. I do have some areas that I'm cautious on. Namely, is Chris kind of did point out that the entire dev team really did not go over it. Right, we're only talking about a little over 50% actually read the entire thing, and about 90% kind of just skimmed through it, right? Along with my other concern is he was talking about how some of this stuff's already started the brainstorming. really one of the things that's gotten the team into trouble in the past with big sweeping changes or things like this is they start brainstorming and thinking, hey, this is going to be really cool. They start implementing it, and then it comes out to us and it's too late for them to make changes to the direction they're going. So I think one of the things I want to see out of this proposal coming forward, again, it's again my initial impression is I want to make sure that we're seeing more community involvement where they're reaching out, and I think we've seen some of that. A great example is Rob PvP is he's in direct talks now with the dev team on some of the PvP stuff.
Yeah.
So I
Hallelujah.
mean, the future looks brighter.
Well, Mouse, what do you? I mean, do you agree with him on that? Like, I mean, like, is this really a proposal or a roadmap, or what do you think this actually was that we got today?
I kind of think it is a roadmap. When you're reading it, it looks like what their goals are. It's kind of like, okay, we've looked at all of this, which for one is impressive to me that they've actually looked through all of this. They've read what people have put down for once,
Well, is
and
it
they've
him
kind of
or is
put
it
it
just
together.
Chris or is it the team? Because I mean, he does mention like there's not even like 50% plus.
Honestly, at this point, I mean, he does try to refer to the other people as well, but I'm thinking personally, a lot of this is him, or it's him saying, "All right, you and you need to sit down here and focus on this, please." I think he's, delegating a lot of this, uh, but I think his hand is a lot in this. So, I mean, that's impressing me a lot, seeing his interactive with the community and on Twitch and whatnot and reaching out to everyone. But he is very quick to say, hey, this isn't just me. Don't get hyped up. This is just, we're trying to make this better for everyone. So that right along there, just it impresses me. It makes me happy. He says don't use the word hyped up, but it does hype us up. It gets us excited about it that there's changes coming. So to see that they're reading this, they're putting these things together. When I read this looks like goals. This is what they're aiming for. And it's kind of given us a map of, hey, everybody, this is what we're aiming for. We realize that this is going to take time, but just work with us. We are going to try to make these changes.
All
So
right, so
that's
let me ask another question about this, basically. So, I mean, there's been some expression of some of the people in the community, not necessarily people in this particular group today, but how would you answer somebody that basically said that, I mean, a lot of this stuff is not stuff that we haven't said before, like over and over and over again for a very long time. Like, maybe Chris came in, read some of the old forums, and then, a lot of this stuff was already like in the works. And then the CDP is kind of like a public relations thing.
I don't. I
I
hope that
don't
you don't
really
mind
think
me.
so.
Yeah, I don't think Chris has been on the team long enough. There's so much stuff on the forums. He's coming in with a fresh perspective from the outside. Yeah, the dev team might have seen some of this stuff, but the dev team has shown time and time again that they're not really understanding what the community wants, right? There's been a number of times in the past where the dev team has gone the complete opposite and said, well, we have reasons. And we go, well, what are those reasons? And they just say reasons, right?
Mhm.
And I think Chris is really opening up some transparency in this. And part of the CDP is kind of get a fresh perspective of people that are actually playing the game right now, right? Um,
Which is always a bit of a challenge on the forums, to be honest with you, regardless,
it
because
is.
there's a lot.
It's a nearly impossible. It's not impossible, but it is a very difficult format to get that kind of information out of.
Right, because I mean, they're not. It's not like you can look up somebody. You can see like how many posts they did and when they last posted, and like you can see all their post history. But it doesn't actually determine whether or not they've actually been playing the game. Like, I mean, some of the guys in commenting here could literally be mod 2 they left, right? But regardless, I mean,
well, the
all
other
right.
thing too is
Mhm.
that Chris is actually in the game. He
Yep.
is leveling a tune. He's not taking handouts because people have tried to offer him things to make it
Mhm.
easier for him, and he's not taking it. He didn't automatically join a level 20 guild and get all these great boons. So he
Yeah,
is
preach
literally,
that.
yeah, he's literally out there learning as a regular player would learn, and he's
Right.
not doing a pay to win. He's
Yeah.
finding all these problems that we had.
And that kind of segues into, and I've said on my wish list a number of times that we need that kind of community involvement from someone on the team, right? We need somebody that's in the game every day, that's playing the game, dedicating some of their work hours, whether it's the community manager or whether, in this case right now it's, Mr. Whiteside or whoever else it is. There needs to be someone in there for an hour or two every day, not in the test sandbox with the developers, not on preview when there's a new mod coming, but actually in the live game, feeling what the players are feeling.
I mean, he's literally running with other players.
I know. I have to admit, like, I'm supposed to be the moderator, but I mean, a few of the people that I've watched, like some of the other content creators, have come and gone. I've asked a few of them, what they found, like how they found it, because why are they not streaming the game anymore? Like, why did they leave? And so one of them the other day was very kind to, like, I'd asked them months ago, and they finally sent it to me. Was like, what their experience was like from leveling all the way going through, and then what happened at the end and why they left. So I'm going to send that forward to them. But I mean, in reading it, I was honestly shocked about a few of the things, because there was stuff that I just, like a lot of us that have been playing the game for a long time, we don't experience those things because we just inherently know what to do, like because of the length of time we've done it, or we're aware of the changes in certain things. And we know the order from when we did it a long time ago, and these are not things that these people are equipped with when they come in. So, anyways, I don't want to. I didn't. It's not my preach box, but I was amazed as well about how many. Like, I'm really. It gives me a lot of faith in him that he's doing it that way, because I'm sure he came up with the same stuff that this person did, which is stuff. There was, like I say, a few things that didn't even occur to me. Okay, so let's go on to the next thing. So we covered a little bit of the proposal. That's going forward. Obviously, the next CDP, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but let's go back to the bulk of it, like the specific things. Like Willow said that he was proud of the two things that he had were his two things suggestions in there. Did you read any of that, Rachel? Or the summaries? Was there anything in particular that popped out in your eyes that was, the biggest thing, like the thing that you were most excited for your own self to happen?
Probably the streamlining of the leveling experience, because that has just such a huge conglomeration of stuff. Like, there's a lot of stuff that players need to learn. We don't realize that because like you said, we've been here so long that we just know things. But there is actually a lot of stuff to learn about this game, and then it's not really taught in the game. So the whole process of streamlining it and increasing tutorialization, that was a word that was used in the AMA that I'm not really sure if it's actually a word, but we're going to go with it. And they're going to change campaigns, rewards, player education, purpose, goals, time, and that's pretty much everything. And I think that once that gets streamlined, people are, for one, going to understand a lot more about the game, and maybe understand a lot more about why things are the way they are. That can make them more accepting of other changes that may happen, and, might cause them to not quit in the future if they understand why things are happening, because they know what's going on. Does that make sense? I don't know.
It does a little bit. I mean, you're right that the way he lays it out in the proposal specifically, it does encompass it basically encompasses the whole game. Because I mean, really, he's talking 1 to 8 experience, 1 to 80 experience, and so, but he's talking about tackling everything: campaigns, rewards, progression, like player education. Like, that's basically the whole game. There's nothing other than really, it covers everything, includes even like professions, essentially.
Well, sorry to interrupt a
Oh,
little
it's
bit.
fine.
Let,
Oh.
let's be honest. The majority of players that come and try a new video game, they give a new video game about 3 hours. If they don't, if by the 3 hour mark, they're not going, hey, I want to continue on, they're done. Right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
And then so there's tiers along the point. So you think about it from a 3 hour tier, and then if they make it past 3 hours, they're probably going to level to 80, right? Or I should say 70, they're probably going to level to 70, right? And if they make it to 70, they're at that point in time, they're going to reevaluate. And right now, there really isn't a clear path of progression that says, hey, you need to go to Undermountain, grab this gear and stuff, unless they're actually communicating with other people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
because
the quests are there, but it's just such a flurry. You don't know what you should be doing next. You don't know that sometimes you can skip campaign zones. You don't know what order you need to go in. Any of that stuff there's not tutorial. There's some tutorials built into the game, but they've been kind of watered down. With artifacts and enchanting and stuff like that. But they're really the way they're made right now. They're kind of distractions, and they kind of take away from that process and kind of slow you down. Um, and then once you get to 80, then it's like, gloves are off. Here you go, free for all. Yeah, and you have no idea what you need to do now that you're level 80, right? So the people that I've seen come and then quit the game are generally they're the 1 to 3 hour people. If they're not convinced that it's worthwhile spending more time at 3 hours, they're out. And then there's the people that hit that level 70 mark and they go, hey, I'm not convinced that's worth my time, or I have no idea, or I just got stuck on something. I spent 10 minutes trying to figure it out. I don't know what I need to do. They're done, and they probably don't come back to the game. And the same thing happens at 80.
So here's my core question then. So I mean, I agree that those are probably the two schools. But I mean, are we really gonna like model this game around like the 3 hour person, or are we gonna model this game around the person that takes it to 70? Because I mean, one of the issues that I personally saw and I was hoping was gonna happen was like it's too easy to level like in the under levels under 60. Like you don't really like you can burn through stuff in advance really fast on like
Why
on 160, but you don't really learn a lot.
why
It's
can't we do
way
both?
too easy. It's way too easy. I mean,
Why can't you do both? Why can't you ramp it up? You mean I mean I'm saying lower the experience giving out, and at the same time raise the information give out. So it takes a little bit longer, but then you're getting a lot more information in the time.
Well, as long as we're not doing repeat quests. So it's
Yeah.
really right now, I leveled, I generally don't level new characters, but I did level a new character this last fall with the promotion,
Right.
just to get the extra bags and stuff. And I was finding that, with some XP stones, I was skipping 3 zones at a time, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Just I would go in, do the first like 3 quests in the zone, and then skip over the next 2 or 3 zones, do 2 or 3, and then continue on. And I was thinking to myself, even without these XP zones, it would be pretty easy for me to skip zones and just level to 80,
well,
right?
I don't know how different it is now, but I started to level a new character back when I was doing that stream thing. I don't. It was after mod 16, but I was not in a guild. I did not have any XP bonuses, no bonus items or anything like that. I was just doing like complete, like as if I was a brand new player. The only thing I had was VIP because VIP is across account. But
Mhm.
and I found the leveling experience to be pretty even. Like I wasn't ahead. I was actually behind because I didn't do the Acquisitions Incorporated quests, but I didn't feel like I was burning through things. I didn't feel like I was going too quickly. If anything, I felt like I was going too slowly. And
Mhm.
that's why I think there's like two sides to that. It kind of depends on how you're approaching leveling, because if you're going at it as a brand new player with nothing, it's going to be a completely different experience than if you're approaching it as an experienced player, like in an endgame guild and has a lot of XP bonuses and stuff, and you're going to have two
Right.
different perspectives depending on which approach that you take.
Right.
And the
Well,
and your stones as well, right? Like what stones are you wearing, or if you're wearing any, etc. Yeah.
Well,
Right.
and And streamlining the 1 to 80 experience, part of that problem might be really we're talking about I mean, granted, it's the same game, but we're really talking about two separate games. The 1 to 80 experience is a completely different game than the 80 plus experience.
And
right?
that's why and I agree, and that's where I wanted to eventually go with the question was, so in my mind, like the 1 to 80 experience is one experience, but there should be like a similar type experience. And just to quote him, not Mass Effect, going forward after 82, right? Like there should be like some sort of story progression, like dragging you either from like campaign to campaign, or moving forward.
Don't
What?
get me started on. I would love to have consequences to our dialogue decisions, right?
Yeah.
But we've had that conversation many times.
We've
That would
had
be
that, and we've
story
also
time.
like, I mean, I think one of the so in this person's letter, one of the things that they talked about was they really enjoyed like the first part of the setup of the character and like trying to create their character. But at the end of the day, they didn't understand like why what the point was of picking like a god or anything else. Like out of a lot of the stuff that was there, like there's not a lot like other than like the appearance. Like the roll, remember the roll was a thing? We used to try and roll the right numbers, and now the roll is preset. So there's a lot of stuff in that beginning thing that you just don't think like, wow, like.
Well,
Does it still not tell you what the ability scores do in the character creation? Because I know that was a problem before. Like, it didn't tell you that strength increased physical damage, so you either had to look it up or just go on blindly and then realize later on, oh, I picked the wrong ability scores at the beginning. Now I have to go back and change it if I want to be most effective.
Well, the point is that the ability, like, so if I remember correctly, like, so you start off with a pre-roll based on your class selection, but and still in the character creation, it still gives you the attribute roll. It gives you the attribute roll before you choose your class. So
when I did it this fall after the the pre-roll, Rachel, it was no, it still did not give. So if Hastur, for example, if let's say you're running in there with a Dragonborn, and so you get 2 stats, you can put +2 to, right?
right,
Well,
you pick that before the class,
yeah.
and then you're stuck with it. Yeah, so it does. You're right. Yeah, that's wrong.
Yeah. You need to know what you're getting into.
Right. I mean, but again, we all know that like it does make, like, in a Dragonborn's case, it might make a little bit more difference than most of the other classes. Because we also know that the way the attributes like are structured, the numbers, like for the things, are not even really, they don't really serve any purpose. Like they're not in the right spots for even the classes that you're rolling for, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's definitely on that journey.
I also think they need to work on when they can communicate. I know they were trying to prevent the gold spammers and all that, but you've got people that come to our streams, for example, and they're interested in the game. They ask questions and they say, you know what? I'm going to give this game a try. You tell them when you get on, look up such and such or ask about such and such, but they can't even speak. They can't ask for nothing.
That was mentioned somewhere.
So, I mean, to me,
that's actually in the roadmap. Yeah.
Yeah. It's in the roadmap that they're going to go and look at that, about how they do it.
Well, and one of the ways they can solve for that is keep the restraints in there as is, but create a sponsor system, right? And so now, if one of those people becomes a gold seller, well, then the person that sponsored them suffers consequences.
But how do they get sponsored would be the question.
Well, so what they would do is kind of use like the referral link. And so you would give them something they would go to, and then they would then have their chat opened up. They could join your guild, and do whatever.
So then,
I mean,
the person that uses that becomes a gold spammer, then the person who gave them the link would get some sort of punishment?
I mean, that's one way to,
Yeah, I don't like that because I just have mine put out there. Yeah. I just automatically give mine so people can get,
I thought you were
extra
going to
stuff.
suggest
I'm talking more like, I'm talking more like an immediate like gold spammer, because what could happen is you could have a gold seller go in there, level a character. They have their slave labor leveled a character to 80, and now that character can sponsor everything, right?
Oh, okay.
That's the flip side to that, right? But if all those people that gold spammer invited now become gold sellers, then there's some way to track that back.
I'm kind of curious how they're going to go about
Mm-hmm.
changing that, because there's really no way to guarantee that somebody's not going to go ahead and just become a gold seller. So
Yeah.
how
Well, here's
are
the
they gonna-
question. Like, I mean, like, do those things actually, have they made a difference? Like, the thing is that I haven't like cleared off. I know that somebody cleared off their whole like ban list, like off
I
their private thing. And then is it better now?
It
Is
is for
it?
me.
It is
Um,
light years. I mean, I'm granted, I've been playing for 6 years. 4 years ago, I couldn't walk into PE without getting it, and I would get probably 5 to 6 gold seller emails a day. I
Mhm.
haven't gotten a gold seller email in like 6 months.
I don't know if I've never gotten a mail in game about it. I just see
Mm.
it in like the chats and stuff. And even then it's
Mhm.
not, I mean, there's less of a population in the game than there was before, but in general I just don't see it as often. And then I just immediately block people if I see it. So
Mhm.
Yeah, I cleared my whole ban list, and I don't get mails. I don't get the messages. So I'm
So then whatever they
not.
did, we can't argue that it worked. It solved the problem for that particular thing. But at the same point, it created a barrier for new people to come in, right?
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
is and part of the reason was, from my understanding, was because I was watching a streamer the other night, and he said that he had been gone from the game for a while, but he had like the last time he played, the level cap was 60. And so when he came back, he couldn't talk to anybody, he couldn't go on the age, he couldn't do anything. Because when he leveled that character originally, he, I guess, leveled through however other means, without ever having to do those quests. So because he was level 60, he'd never done those quests, he was blocked.
he
So
didn't have any characters on his account that had done it, because I think it's account. Because I've had
yeah,
characters that
yeah. Well, what do you?
level through
He
other
might have
means.
leveled. Well,
might
he
level
might have
through
leveled through
PvP.
PvP. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what he ended up doing was just leveling a new character, like from scratch. And then once he did that, he naturally did the quests. But I can understand also what Willow's saying is that, if I was level, like, I mean, it's not saying, but if I was a new person, got into a guild, and then managed to level, there's a good chance that I might have skipped like the quests because I might have leveled past the area.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I mean, there is something you said for both. I mean, maybe there's a better way of doing it, is I guess all I'm saying, right? Like, it's obviously effective, but maybe there's a better way of, like, if you haven't completed, is there a way of doing like a captcha or something else that would actually open up the things for them? I don't know. But obviously that'll come up in a CDP in a future one. So speaking of like future CDPs, so the next one, like we talked about, is going to be rewards. And Willow wasted no time in posting like on the board about what his particular thing was on that. And so let's just pick apart his thing for the time being. Like, I'm assuming you both read it, or all of you read it. And so do you think that that's a necessary thing, for us to have access to be able to, address like the topic, progression and rewards?
I think
Yes.
so, because if we don't know what we're dealing with, we can't properly suggest things to fix it.
But I mean, is
Right.
it like so? But I mean, is it necessary for us to know? Like, I can agree it's necessary for maybe to know the total number of loot tables, but is it necessary for us to know what's in those loot tables?
I think so, because a lot of us have anecdotal evidence of what's on the loot tables. We don't know what's fully on the loot tables, from Lair of Lost Moth to, Tower of the Mad Mage. We have an idea of what's on there. Like, just last week, I remember in Alliance chat, someone's like, I didn't realize Coal Wards were on this loot table for this dungeon. Yeah, they're on a couple of dungeons loot tables. But as evident, we don't know what's actually on the loot tables for every dungeon. And I think that's something that we would want long term is what's on the loot tables for each dungeon. But then we can start talking about, is this the correct loot table for this level of difficulty for the content? What could be changed, right? Knowing that we've got a fresh level 80 can get into this dungeon. What's the appropriate loot table? Let's talk about what the appropriate loot table is, as a community, right? And then let's talk to the devs and say, why do you think this is, appropriate or not appropriate, right? But if we're approaching rewards and we're in the blind, right now we're approaching rewards and we're relatively in the blind with just anecdotal. We don't have any hard data. Without that hard data, we really can't make a solid decision.
Well, I know in talking to you in the past too. I mean, you're a proponent that you should be able to know, like, even if you don't know the odds of something dropping,
Mhm.
that that basically everyone should know what the reward, what the loot table is for that particular content you're doing,
Right.
right?
Right.
I
And
mean,
yeah, and I'm definitely not suggesting that they necessarily, publish the odds of the drops in the loot table, but at least publish the loot table, right?
Yeah.
right. I mean, I think that's I think that's a reasonable request. I think that would be the simplest thing. What if they came back and said, we'd love to give you the loot tables, but we have like 1,000 loot tables.
Then publish a spreadsheet with 1,000 loot tables, and I'll pour over it. You know me, Hastur. I am at heart. I work, in IT, and I work with a data analyst team, and I do a lot of data analytics myself. I do a lot of data analytics in this game. I mean, like, who else do you know that tracked every single reward for every single Demogorgon run they've ever done, right?
I was more concerned about your house. I was more concerned about your house plans on a previous stream, but yes. But I mean, what about you, Silver? Do you think, like, if they had like 1,000 loot tables, what do you think should be attacked first? Like, I mean, should we be like? Because I mean, at that point, if it's that huge,
I don't know how there could be 1,000 if there's only like, I don't know how many pieces of queued content there is. But we'll say like 30. That's a guess. So if there really shouldn't be 1,000. If there's 1,000, then I think there's a problem.
Okay. So let's say then, but I mean, the reason why I bring that up about a number, if you think about it, there's chests for every dungeon. There's 2 chests for many dungeons, right? They're not necessarily operating on the same loot tables. Then you have like campaign zone, and then you have like skirmishes and dungeons, and each of them have like their own loot tables. I'm thinking. So even if you look at the fact that there's probably maybe let's say 22 like active instanced like queuable stuff,
Yeah.
and then you have 2 chests, that's 60, right? And then you have like the campaign zones with maybe
22
other
times
chests.
2 is 44.
22 to 44. Yeah, whatever.
I thought I was the one that's not supposed to be able to do math.
Well, no, I was doing it. Well, I was just trying to see if you're awake. No, you're right. So 22 dungeons, right? So 44 chests. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
So
we'll say there's 60 then.
Okay.
So at that point, if there's that many, it would be better to break it down into categories. Like, here's the skirmishes loot tables, and here's the dungeons and epic dungeons, and if they cross over, that should be noted somewhere as well, because I'm sure that there are, between skirmishes and trials and epic dungeons, there's got to be some sort of crossover, that things that use the same, especially if they're in the same tier of content. I would think that they use the same or similar loot tables.
Yeah, so my impression, again, anecdotally, is there appear to be certain dungeons that will only drop certain things, but there's definitely in certain tiers that they drop all the same loot table. So they may have like the same loot table, except for this dungeon can also drop this 1 or 2, 2 other items.
Right.
And even if they give to us that way and say, Lost Moth can drop this and this. You know, and then here's a loot table for epic dungeons, and here's a loot table, you know, addition for this dungeon, this dungeon, this dungeon. If they gave it to us that way, even that's information that we don't have right now, other than, you know, through experience.
Exactly, because it wasn't until recently that I learned one of the dungeons dropped that pirate hat, and I was like, "What? I've
Mhm.
been wanting one of those. All right, time to run this." You know, so if we had that information available to us, I would know, okay, well, this is the dungeon I need to do this for.
So that's
Some
something that
stuff is in
should
collections, like that pirate hat is in collections, but there's a bunch of other stuff that's not.
Mhm.
And so that's the question. Like, I mean, there is a battle, obviously, like keeping up like with collections, and they said that there's a battle that they're not going to win, because there's so much stuff that they do put in, and like from old, even the new dungeon, they've included some very old transmutes like as drops in the
Mhm.
final dungeon. So is it more? So how would you think? Like, how would they go about doing this? Like in a tooltip way, or how do you think that? How do you see that working? Like, let's say, for example, they sorted out, they've managed to have a unique dungeon drop, like for a particular area, like, and let's use the new dungeon as an example. So there's going to be a couple of different transmutes that are going to be haven't been in the game for a very long time. There are potential drops in there. How would they actually express that in a tooltip or something in
Well,
game? Where go ahead.
well, first off, I think that's like the gold standard, like end of the line type of solution, right? To have that in a tooltip. Um, but for starters, get that in the wiki. I mean, they have ability to edit the wiki, throw that out in the wiki, throw it out in the Neverwinter wiki, right? And then, um, you know, it's harder to add tooltips in game and do edits. Why don't they just put a link in the game to the wiki and be like,
Mm.
for more information, go check the wiki. I mean, that's one option, you know, as an intermediate step until they can actually get those things, you know, coded and added in game.
Like having UIs or something, yeah.
Well, not just that, but how many times, well, I know for me personally, but how many times do people just go to Google and type in, like the pirate hat, Neverwinter, where do I find it? And the Neverwinter wiki pops up. Or if you're trying to find out a quest, I know I've got a link for like I think it's what the 1 through 60 quest or whatever that I share with a lot of people. But your most up to date things like Ravenloft and Schultz and all that, it's not in there. The quest line that you would go through that would help people. All that stuff, like Willow's saying, that stuff needs to be updated. I don't know who does that, if it's directly related to
The
Neverwinter or
wiki
what, but
is completely separate from Cryptic and just anyone who actually works there because the wiki is player edited. It's peer edited. Anyone can go in and edit anything. And I think
Right.
I don't think they would ever link that in the game directly because of that. Because, you know, someone could go in and erase everything or write something dumb, and then they would be looked at as at fault for that because they provided that information, provided that link for people to go see whatever.
Hmm.
But I don't know where I was going with it.
sorry.
Well, I think what you're saying is that you're concerned that the wiki may not be the answer, even though it sounds like a simple solution,
Yes.
right? Because they don't have any ownership over the wiki.
Yeah, and anyone can go change anything, and the wiki itself, there's the people who updated it before either don't do it anymore or don't play anymore or just don't pay attention to new stuff anymore, and there's not really that many people left who actually edit it too. So
The thing is that they have a website. They could very easily throw a wiki, UI on, on the domain. That's not a lot of development. It's almost no development effort. They throw a couple people that are responsible for editing it. They close down the edit so it's not a community edit, and now they have something that they can link in. That again, it's something where they can throw more verbose information on. So I'm not necessarily saying that it has to be the Neverwinter wiki, but it could definitely be a link that we could have in game that we could pull up something on a website.
I mean, yeah, I mean, honestly, like thinking about it, like long term, you would want to get down to something like, say, maybe like 5 different basic tiers of like loot tables, and then unique drops within, like, depending on the dungeon or whatever the content is. Like, and so essentially you could have, like, so everyone knows that you run this dungeon, it's this chest, which then means, like, on this forum that it's this loot table that you're working from. And then, then they could add whatever the 5 or 6 items that may be unique to that particular chest, like, because of the area it's in, right? As a list.
Hold on. There is, I go to Neverwinter, the ARC site. Under PC, there is a wiki thing, and you click on it, heads up, you're leaving ARC Games. And it actually takes you directly to the Neverwinter wiki.
Right.
So, is this the same one that we're talking about?
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they're already linking themselves, yeah?
They are.
I guess they are.
But,
that's a question, I guess, maybe to go in, like, to be discussed with the next thing about where they're posting the information. If they are open to linking to it, it would make it far easier. But it would be open to misinformation based on, people editing that.
Or is there a way that they could take it over and privatize it?
Generally, wikis like Wikipedia and stuff are not based on that. It's basically people going in and editing. People can change it, but they usually have to post, like, a reference, or other people have to confirm.
Yeah, it depends on how it's being moderated. I'm not sure how the Gamepedia Neverwinter wiki is being moderated, but there's a couple of different models of Wikipedia. I'm not going to get into it now too heavily, but essentially you can set it up so it's basically free form, where you go and make a change, and then it gets flagged that a moderator sees that, hey, you made a change, and they can go back in and go, hey, this is not factual, and then reverse it. Or you could make a change and it actually doesn't go into effect until a moderator approves it. So there's a couple of different ways wikis can work. So remember, Wikipedia is just one example, whereas it depends on how they implement the wiki.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just sort of wrap it up. Wrap it up? I guess, is there anyone that has anything else that they don't get a chance to say before we sort of, like, end the first of what we hope is many podcasts?
I know one thing that I'm happy to see that I read in there also is them trying to work with people with disabilities, and that they link the able gamers, because one thing I'm curious to see if they're going to be able to work with is folks with color blindness.
I think they've already actually tried to address some of that, like, by accident, I think, in the past.
Right.
Like, so the most glaring example to me of that is the potion thing in the Tomb of the Nine Gods, where it's an animal shape and a color, right? Now, people that aren't colorblind yell out the color, like, pretty much predominantly. But if the person doesn't understand, they say, I'm colorblind, then the people have the option, then they can type in what animal they are. And so the person can identify it. So to me, that was, like, something that was obviously very forward thinking and encompassed that. But I mean, in the varying difference, like, but the issue has always been, I guess, like, the red area on the floor, right? Like, the danger zone. And prior to mod 15, it didn't really matter very much. But it's much more important now.
I think they can add, like, a texture to it, like a colorblind mode where you enable it, instead of it just being a color, make it have, like, some sort of texture overlay on the ground so that you can see the difference between the terrain and the danger zone, so that you know to get out of it. That's just an idea that just popped into my head. I don't know how viable it actually is. I'm not colorblind. I don't know anyone that's colorblind as far as I know, so I don't really have any experience with that, but yeah.
I mean, there are people that I play with that are colorblind, but somehow or another they manage to work their way through most of it. Willow?
Yeah, so kind of off the color blindness. So I do have a couple of guild mates that are colorblind. So that's actually, that's a good call out, Mouse. One of the other things, I guess again, kind of reiterate my takeaway from the CDP and from the roadmap that was introduced. I'm super optimistic about the future of the game. Even if 10% of what they're proposing gets pulled off, we're going to end up with a better game. That being said, I think it's on us as a community to hold the development team and Mr. Whiteside to accountability, and expect the transparency that's promised, right? And not just transparency in what the future plans are, but transparency in things that are happening before mod drops. We understand that there's legal reasons why they can't talk about certain, like new classes or what the next mod is and stuff like that. But there's definitely things that they can be transparent around, especially when they're talking about, what kind of stuff should go on gear, what should we be doing with class powers and stuff like that. And those are things that there should be transparency on that process, and we should as a community be involved in. And not just that, I know that there's a call out, kind of on the profession system a little bit on Chris's thing, and the way that's worded, it kind of felt like we'll get to it if we can, otherwise we may not. There's a big chunk of the community that's really, really involved in the profession system, and that would be a shame to kind of let fall to the wayside.
That's kind of how it was mentioned in the AMA also. Somebody asked about the professions, and the answer was, we really wanted to get it out in Mod 18, but we just didn't have time. Professions is not forgotten about, but we have to sacrifice something in order to get other things done. And I think that the majority of people would rather have a dungeon than a professions update, and so that's kind of where that went.
Correct.
Well, I mean, I hate to go back to this, but I mean, I'll read it online because there's one sort of paragraph. It sort of gives like a entering into the professions and stuff, because the professions stuff, I understand the importance of it, and you've heard me talk on my stream about how I think it should be leveled in the sense that everyone should have easy access to it. But like but I mean, here I'll read her line. I'll read the line, like the thing, because it actually, it was eye-opening to me a little bit. So it says the storyline was super easy to follow at first. After a while, I joined a guild, and then I realized I didn't have any idea what I was doing. I kept leveling faster than I could complete the quests. The storyline became jumbled, and I didn't know what to do next. I specifically remember one day I spent 2 hours going everywhere I could just to accept every quest possible. At that point, I was basically overwhelmed. I was about level 55 or 60. I had so many quests, I didn't know what to do next. I had no idea what was going on in the storyline anymore. At some point, I was introduced to the workshop, but I quickly gave up on that. I had no idea what to do with it, and I didn't know anything about crafting in the game in general. There was just too much to do.
Yeah, makes sense. I believe it. Because I remember that happened to me, even after knowing what needs to be done, having multiple tunes in the game, coming in here, creating another tune, and even after they took some of the quests out in the different areas, when you're leveling that fast, you've got quests everywhere. And when you turn 60, oh my God, boom, even more. You turn 80, boom, even more.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's possible. Like, I mean, it would seem possible that you would include something, like, and that's the question: is like, is opening I mean, professions, like, really the starting point is a question, right? Like, where, like, should it be started at level 60? Should it be started at level 80? Should it be started earlier in the game so you sort of grow into it? Like, can it be wrapped up? Can it be wrapped up into the storyline? I mean, what is it seems like a separate system, right? Which is kind of why, like, I'm assuming that he's sort of pushing it like to the outside, is because, like, it doesn't really incorporate in any of the other stuff. Like, this, like, it doesn't, like, when you look at streamlining and talk about streamlining, it doesn't really fit into, like, in its current state. It doesn't fit into any of those categories, right?
Yeah, it doesn't fit into the game.
Right? It's like, it is an end game process, right?
Well,
Like,
let's be honest. Professions is a lot like PvP. right?
Mhm.
It's tied in closely to the rest of the game, but it's also not at all.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's fair that he sort of puts it at the end, like
Mhm.
as with the PvP discussions, essentially, right? It's a
Mhm.
fair assessment because it doesn't necessarily fit into the normal progression or the storyline, like of the thing. And I mean, and I don't mean to be mean, but it's probably it's like until it becomes like an integral part of your development, like with the community, it should be there where it's at right now, and it's um okay. Anyways, I think that was pretty good. I want to thank everyone for taking part today. And hopefully we'll get together. I guess that the next one would probably be after the next CDP. Like, so after the rewards is done, we'll probably get together. Some of you can come back, or if you want to come back, and we'll also look to sort of add some more like content creators from Neverwinter to the panel, so we can get a little bit more of a broader sense of the thing. I'm glad that Rachel, you joined us today. Thank you for coming, so we can get the YouTube people in here. She's not a
You're
YouTuber, by
talking
the way.
about me like I'm some separate species.
You are, yeah.
I'm pretty sure I'm a human. I mean, I don't know.
You're a tuber.
You have to,
No.
you have to have like a certain kind of protective skin when you
Mhm.
YouTube. Uh,
I mean, yes, but also no.
okay. Well, I can't wait to see what you do with this when you edit it all together.
And thank you, Hastur, for hosting and moderating.
Yeah, I hope I did okay.
Thank you for using your vocal cords excessively in
Yeah,
this
thank
get
you.
together.
We always appreciate that.
Okay. Well, no slurping.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't have any bits for you right now. I apologize.
All right. Well, that's appreciated. Thank you to Mouse and thank you to Willow, which I talk to every day. But thank you both for coming. And I guess we'll see you all in 30 to 45 days for the next one.
We should all say okay, bye.
Okay,
Okay,
bye.
bye.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye bye.